Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Sorry I'm running late. I just realized I'm in Dallas in my RV and it's an hour late. Sorry, guys. Instead of having my normal 5-minute countdown, I just decided just to throw it on and just get going here. Uh, Hope everybody's doing well tonight. I haven't even taken a look at the live stream to see what's going on here. So let me just take a look. As soon as I realized I was running late, I was like, whoops, I better get things going. Let's just see if the chat is working. I know I don't have the ability to show anyone the chat this week, so something's goofy with that plug-in. I don't know what it is. But either way, I'm here and I'm ready to talk about solar systems for your RV. And I am here in my RV tonight. I got me a cup of coffee, and hopefully we'll get some questions answered and go through it. I've got some errands to do. We're at a coffee show this weekend here in we are at South Texas Fair. It's down here in Beaumont, Texas. We drove in from Florida yesterday and the day before. 7 hours each day, pulling fifth wheel, 43-foot RV. In that RV, I have a 6000 XP, a 15 kilowatt hour DIY solar battery. I used to have my EG3 or EG4 batteries in here also. At that point I had 30 kilowatt hours. For those of you who've been around long enough to remember me traveling and living in my RV there for, I don't know, about 18 months we did on the road with the RV. That was lots of fun. And it's kind of nice to be back into it. You know, I sat down and you sit down in your own little place on your your normal bed and in your RV, and everything's nice and comfortable and all that kind of stuff. So, but it has been a long time. It's been I think it was right around Thanksgiving that we moved back into the house. So that's been let's see, December, January, February, March. We're looking at 4 months. Wow, it's been 4 months, and it was right around the 23rd too. It was 22nd, 23rd, something like that. So. Amazingly, here we are again, back in the same thing, except I am in Texas, and the weather is beautiful outside. It was about 80 degrees earlier today, and the solar system in Florida is doing well too. I think, let's see what we got going on, and we can take a little quick roundabout look at the stats if you guys want. Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. So I could show you this screen here, and you can see today was my first day. I finally figured out how to get the solar system to not hit 100%, and as you can see, I got it right up to the top. But I had to run that battery down all the way as close as I could to dead, and then maintain it as much as I could and keep it down there as long as I could to get it, because it's been hitting 100% every day, and as far as I'm concerned, that's just kind of lost power, because I use all that power for bit mining. So today I probably hit a record. I did 39 kilowatt hours, and 31 of it's been burned so far, but we still got a few hours of running, because we still have about 7 kilowatt hours in the battery that it still needs to run out. So, but first day, and when I get back, I will be adding some more battery power to it. But that's not what tonight is about. It's not about that. It is about our running everything in your RV, and I've got I got a couple of good questions in from folks on that. So if we'll handle a few of those, and we'll go through some of the other things, so we can quickly cover the stats of the RV today. So here's the 6,000. I've got two 6,000 XPs, as I said. This one's in the solar shed, so you can see it's still running the bit miner here. But I'm going to switch it over, and I'm just using the default monitoring software for this one, because I don't have Home Assistant or Solar Assistant. I transfer that all to the solar shed. I thought about hooking up a solar assistant, or not a home assistant here, but then in order to get all the statistics from the inverter, I would also need to get a solar assistant because they feed through. You can now hook the Victron straight into the home assistant. So in home assistant now you go into the modules, and this is very, very convenient for those of you in your RV. You can do the BLU battery management. This will allow you to connect to batteries and pull them up. But more importantly, there is a module for the Victron integration also. And this will allow you to connect to either your servo and get all of the stats in here from your RV if you're using Victron. In my case, I've only have a shunt in here, so I would connect to it, and there's a separate module for just the BLU Victron components also. I think I actually have it disabled right now because I didn't want to. 3 not show. Let's see, show those 3. Let's see what they are. Yes, here they are, the Victron BLU, that's it. And these connect directly to your Victron devices, so no longer do you have to like hook up an ESP32 and plug it in and you know, fix all the little wiring and stuff. Those were the fun days, but now they've made it really easy. The only trick to this is that you do have to configure, you do have to go into the Victron app and look up the actual connection key, which is the token, the security key, so that you can connect to it securely, because it does simulate connecting to your Victron device with Bluetooth. So if your device can't reach it through Bluetooth, then you kind of run into some problems. And I've never had much luck yet with the remote Bluetooth connections with the ESP ones at this point. They work for some things, but they didn't seem to work for any of the Bluetooth stuff in there. But that was a different module. Maybe they work just fine for this one. So any of you that have tested that would be great to hear about. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing good. I hope that we're all having a great week. I'm looking through my screens here to see if I can find a chat window. I don't see one anywhere. I know I have it here somewhere. There it is. Okay. Loud and clear from Al. Thank you, Al. I appreciate that. Glad you can hear me just fine. Are you using VE Direct to USB? I do have both devices on the Home Assistant. So let me just show you real quick. NSB. So if you look here under my integrations, I come down here to this one. There's 2 servos here. One of them, well, actually, one's a Raspberry Pi with Venus system, so it simulates a servo. This is a real servo here that I installed. So this one has a couple of different devices connect to it. The Victron 100/20 and the 150/35, both of those are using the VE to USB connections. And then the shunt, is it the shunt? No, I take that back. The shunt and the 100/20 are using the USB, and the 100/35 is using a true VE to VE connection. So it's one of the normal ones. Then you'll notice down here buried up at or not buried, at the very top here, there's a battery. This is actually using a connection to a 12-volt battery that's running that little mini solar system that I built. Actually, it's not. It's running one of the 12 volts in the 24 pack in a 12 volt. Let me rephrase that and see if I can say it correctly. It is one of 2 batteries in the 24 volt pack, 100 amp hour one, that I got from Lead Time to test, and it had direct connect to the Victron to report all of the statistics as far as you can see here. I mean, it has maximum voltage, it has the size, the capacity, the amount that it can have. So if I had all my batteries integrated, it would be one that would be able to integrate into it. I'm not particularly fond of all those communications with those batteries and stuff. I kind of usually just go with the running it on voltage, but it seems to work. So this would work just fine. This system originally I had in the RV connected to the 6000 XP here, and I pulled it out when I moved into the solar shed. And I don't know really what I'm going to do with this system here. It's been performing really well, and that was actually what I went over there to show you guys, and then got sidetracked and didn't do it. Oh, there's the monitor. Okay, so this is the monitoring software. So this is from the EG, from the one in the RV. So the 67 is from the RV, from the solar shed at home, and this one is from the RV. Now we can come down here and take a look at this. I don't think I've hit any grid today. I think everything has really been running off of solar. I get enough sun here that I do have some trees on one side, so I probably will hit some. I don't know what these big spikes are. Let's see, what is that? Yellow is consumption. Those are probably when when we came back from the show and I flipped the AC on right a few minutes ago. And that's the battery, and that's the solar RV, and there is no grid listed here. So I'm assuming there just isn't any grid. Inputs, outputs. Let's see if we can get some data here on grid. I don't know that I used any yet. I have it plugged in, but it very rarely ever needs it. Never used to need it when I had the 32 kilowatt hours, but nowadays it needs it a little bit more often with 15. But to be honest with you, the system has been so solid that you know, I just plugged it in, and it runs 24/7, 7 days a week. I never even do anything. I mean, even when it's parked, we leave the AC on low to keep in order to keep it dehumidified. It gets enough sun power to run it, and the battery, you know, barely drops out of 90% zone when it's doing that. I do, when it's parked like that, I do bump the top of the scale from the charge rate under configuration. So I will go into, which one is it? It is got to be, wow, which one is it? I don't know. Oh, it's 307. So the charge rate, I do drop the charge rate here. This is so much easier to see on Solar Assistant. I don't know why it is so much easier to see on a Solar Assistant. So on Solar Assistant, I'll go in and I'll drop the charge rate for, and I don't know why they can't make it this easy to understand. Battery charging, when do you charge based on voltage, start at 46, stop, start charging there, stop charging there. And then, of course, I just switch off and go into day mode based on this also. So but it works so well, I don't even think about it anymore. I do bring that charge voltage down, which is 56.4 right now that I'm actually using, so that I want it to charge all the way up. But when it's parked, what I do there is then I bring that voltage down to about 55.9. And that way it never quite gets to that super full stage, and it just kind of cycles back and forth every day, you know, 10 or 12%, and keeping the humidity down in the RV, keeps the fridge running, the air conditioning's run at light mode, and just, you know, generally keeping the RV running. So, and I haven't had any problems with it. It's been running like that now for ages. Where I park it, I do have access to Wi-Fi, so I get the basic Wi-Fi, and that's why I didn't hook up any of the Home Assistant or anything, because I had moved it to the other system. Anyway, so now where was that? I was watching the chat. It was here. There we are. Okay. Oh, NSB, yeah, you're more than welcome. I hope that answered your question. And then so I'm going to jump into some other questions that I got from some viewers online. At any time, if you're online and you want to ask a question, feel free to do so. But I've got a whole bunch of movies to watch. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to get through the entire show and not answer the questions. So all of these questions, I believe, came from viewers, and I think I picked them out to make sure that they were all about RVs. So I'll just go through as many of them as I can and intertwine the ones that you guys ask live. and answer them. But if you have any questions or anything, we'll go into those, and these will probably cover most everything. Hey, CJ, good to see you. Long time no see. I don't know if it's been me or if it's been you. Um, okay, I don't even remember. I may have even missed you last week. And it's good to see everybody. Got the whole gang here tonight. All right. Let's see if Amy's here too. Not yet. All right, then. We will go to some questions. Let me see where I've got those hidden. Let me just see. Sorry, I'm sitting here. I hope you guys can see me okay. I'm sitting right in the middle of my bed, actually, in the RV. My wife and her friend, our helper for the show, are sitting out there. So I hope you can see everything okay. Let me just see what I got here. I want to go into questions. So let's see if we can get those to pop up on the screen quickly. And they did. And now if I go to here to get them to where I can read them. All right, let's get started then. So the first question is, Jake is asked, how many solar panels do I actually need for a typical RV setup? So Jake, this is a really tricky question, because it's not necessarily how many do you need for a typical RV setup. It is more how many you can fit on a typical RV setup. I saw a little teardrop on the way down here who had three of those like cloth ones. What are those things called? The foldable ones, and he had glued them down to the front of the teardrop. And so, they're probably 200 watts a piece maybe. So that's like 600 watts in a teardrop, which is fantastic. On my RV, it's a fifth wheel, and I took the air conditioners off, and I made all of the devices that are on the roof as low profile as I could, and I fit 10 380 watt bifacial panels up there. Now, a lot of people ask me, why did you do the bifacial? I didn't do them for the bifacial collection of solar. I did them because the bifacial panels were lighter by a significant amount when I bought these. These are the Aptos 370 panels, and I believe I think I have links to all of the tools and everything here on this QR code if you're interested in. And if you can't get to the QR code, it's just mattmansolar.com/start. And you'll see all of the solar panels that I recommend. I don't know that they make the 370s anymore. They make a 400, but they're the Aptos ones. And I was a one-man band putting them up. So I was able to get 10 of them up there. Now with 10 of them, I have no idea how much solar energy they collected today. Let me see if I can find that. We'll put that up here on the screen. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So we'll share the screen here. This is the EG4 app. I'm just using it because it's the simplest way to get to things, to the basic things. So you can see here today's yield. I had 6.7 kilowatt hours was today's yield, and I've discharged. What is this thing doing? Oh, I'm clicking on it. That's what it's doing. And I've discharged 9.9. So I am actually going into the negative zone here. There was a lot of clouds out today, and it looked like it was going to rain. And I've got some trees on one side. So to be honest with you, I've paid absolutely no attention to my usage. Now, in a normal RV, we're talking about 2 air conditioners. The dogs are here, so we don't shut them off. I do turn them down when I get home, but I pay no attention to that. Espresso machines, coffee machines, refrigerators, TVs, everything. We live like normal. I do not at any time change anything. And my wife likes it nice and cold at night, so the air conditioner runs at 61 degrees at night, all night long. So there is absolutely no living by other standards. So how many is the question? And the answer is, it really depends on how many you can fit. Typically, most people with 5 or 6 kilowatt hours a day can get by, but that means you're going to want 1,000, 1,200, and then on a good day you'll get your 5 or 6 kilowatt hours. But I would suggest if you're doing it, go in and do an audit on how much you use. You can go to the meter when you get there. to an RV park or something before you plug in, and check how many kilowatt hours are on it, and then check it again when you're done and find out how many you're really using. Because sometimes you'll be surprised just how much. I think this trip I've got everything on, including the hot water heater. I'm not using gas because there's a grid here, and I won't use it unless I need to. But I'm certainly not going to, live without things while I'm traveling and working if I don't need to. So the answer to that is, how much do you need? Well, it depends on how much you want to do. I would say a good place to be is around 1200 to 1500 kilowatt hours, and that's about the best you're going to build, or 12 to 1500 kilowatts of power in most RVs. If you get into a fifth wheel and you get a bigger one like mine, and you want to get rid of the air conditioners, and you want to pull ACs off the roof to make room for more panels, and you want to do things like that. So I sealed mine in, and I think I might be able to show you. Let me see if I can flip this around where you can see it here. I sealed mine in on the roof, and you can see here, that is where I patched it up. That's a board with got a high gloss paint and everything on it, and then those 4 little bolts that you can barely see that they're painted high gloss also, those go through to the top piece on the roof. That's just a thin piece of wood up there that's also protected against all the elements and everything, and then caulked in and lap sealed over top of everything. And then I installed the mini split, and I've got one here in the bedroom, and the second one out in the living room on the back of a standard fifth wheel. Has that bookcase at the very top, and I took the bookcase, the drawers off of it, and built one into that bookcase. And that way the lines can run right out the back and drip down the bumper right behind where the mini split's mounted back there on the back bumper. So how many? You know what? It really just depends. There is no solid answer to how many you can have. How many you need is as many as you can get, because you will always find a way to use all the power that you have. So hopefully that answers the question for Jake. So let's move on to the next one, if I can figure out how. There it is. The next question is from Lisa M. asks, can I run my RV air conditioner on solar, or is that still unrealistic? No, that is way realistic. Air conditioning, now if you're running your air conditioner that comes with your RV, one of those units that go up in the top, those things are power sucking pigs, which is why I replaced mine. My RV could literally use 50 kilowatt hours a day running air conditioners and keeping us cool the way I live today. Air conditioners made all the difference in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, these air conditioners, you can still use 8 or 10 kilowatt hours a day if you're cooling it in a hot summer day in Florida or something like that. But you definitely can run them, and if you have enough battery power and you end up with 3,700 watts of power on the roof and have a good Sunday. I went months and months and months and months. Now, you do have to have some autonomy, and what I mean by that is you do have to have enough of a buffer of a battery to absorb all that sunlight during the day and store it all and not get full, and then run it completely down, because you hit one cloudy day and you're out. That was what was happening to me when I had 15 kilowatts of battery power. When I went to 30 kilowatts of battery power, I could go sometimes 3 or 4 months without having a single day of using any type of grid power whatsoever. Or in the case if I was out and about, then in a generator. Now the nice thing about it is that I didn't need a generator to power the whole RV. I could just hook up a little charger to 120 volt, little minor, Champion 2000 watt one, and just let it run for a few hours and give me, 3 hours. I could get, like 6 kilowatts or something, get a good boost, and boom, be right back into it for months and months and months. Because usually when it happened, it was bad weather, it was, excessive usage or something along those lines, where it got super hot, but then you had, super clouds following it. So those were the kind of things that happened, but it it is absolutely 100% realistic to do it. And I wish I could see that chat window at the same time and I can see this. Okay, I still can't see it. Okay, good. All right. So moving on to the next question is number 3 from Tom from Arizona ask, is it better to go with 12 volt, 48 volt in an RV system, solar system? You know, this is a really, really tough question because there's a lot of things to consider. Usually the 12 volt, 24 volt, 48 volt argument with me doesn't go too far. I usually just say go with a 48 volt. It's a whole lot easier to deal with. But in an RV, there are a lot of other extenuating circumstances. Let's point out a few of them. First one is most RVs operate on a 12 volt system today, meaning you already have a 12 volt battery system in there. You already have a converter in your unit, which could basically be a charger for you. Converter meaning it converts from AC power to DC power, and can charge your batteries, and it's used there for your house batteries. Sometimes you have to replace it for lithium iron phosphate batteries, but most of the more modern RVs come with one that work with lithium now, so that's not going to be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, but you're going to want to check it. The second real complication is, and I did it here, I went with 48 volts, but that means that now you have to deal with a 48 volt system and a 12 volt system and an AC system. So it adds like a third set of electrical systems to the complexity of what you have here. So if you go out in my solar system, I have the 6000 XP, which provides all the power coming from the grid, and it does all the bypass, and it does all the inverting from my 48 volt batteries to my RV. Okay. Then I had to have a 12 volt system because the lights like these here, what in the world? My light don't work. Lights like these here are all 12 volts. So in an RV, most of your lighting system, and a lot of people have refrigerators that are 12 volts. They have hot water heaters that are 12 volts. They have some people even, they're beginning to come out with 12 volt 12 volt ACs, which is really good because then you don't have to pay the tax. If you're familiar with my terminology here, you don't have to pay the extra. You don't have to use the extra power to convert or invert DC power to AC power to use a standard air conditioner. So like my mini splits that I mounted here, they do need AC power. Now they're 110s, they're not 220s, so I didn't go that far, but they are. But I do have to do the inversion on them, and the inversion inevitably costs power to do it, so it's not as cheap. So a air conditioner that you got that was 12 volt would definitely be more efficient. So complexity is there, but at the same time, it also depends on the size of your RV. This is the third and probably one of the most biggest reasons to go with 48 volt. It depends on how big a system your RV is. I have a 50 amp plug for my RV, which means it's got two 50 amp 120 branch circuits. It never uses 220 anywhere, but it does split them, and half of my RV runs off of one side of the 220 and half of it runs off the other side, which gives me tremendous power to run multiple of the standard air conditioners, to run the refrigerators, to run all kinds of things. So that much of it, the hot water heater, all of it. That's wonderful, except doing that with 12 volts would be nuts, because then you're going to have multiple 4-aught cables to provide, 300, 400 amps of power to do that. And I'm not sure exactly what the math is. Let's do the math here. So let's say we wanted to provide 6,000, which I can provide 6,000 watts of power with my 6000 XP. So if I wanted to provide Sorry, that coffee is good though. I made it just before the show, so I wouldn't forget like last time. 6,000 watts divided by 13.2, which is the nominal voltage of a 12-volt battery, is 454 amps to provide for a system that could provide everything in this RV. Well, you're not going to want to do that because the wiring and the batteries and the risk of trouble at that size would just be that. So you're going to have to go with a 48-volt system. So that's really the third biggest deciding factor on whether you want 12 volt or 48 volt. There are a lot of RVs, Class A's, that run 24 volt systems. And in that case, you've got the best of both worlds. It's your house battery and it's large enough to power a large majority of all of your systems. So in that case, you would drop from 454 amps down to 227 amps or something. And 227 amps is large, but it's manageable. 454 amps is not manageable. I would not suggest that you use 12 volts for that. All right, just want to check over here, make sure I'm not missing any chats or anything because I can't see it on this. I'm just working off my laptop tonight, so sorry. The camera is my laptop camera, although it is kind of neat that it follows me around wherever I go. But it's difficult to get it to focus on on other things that are not me. Okay. So that's the argument about 12 volt versus 48 volt. And the answer is it really depends on your RV. If you've got a small RV that runs out of 12 volt, a teardropper or something like that, and you're running, anything less than, I would say anything under 100 amps, and that means anything under about 1,300 watts, I would go with 12 volt. If you already have a 12 volt system in the RV. If you've got 24 volts in the RV, then anything under 3,000 watts, I would just stick with the 24 volt. And anything over 3,000 watts, I would immediately jump to 48 volt and just deal with the two systems. Now, you can deal with the fact that you have two battery systems in two different ways also. You can hook up a charger to charge the 12 volt system. You can hook up separate solar panels to charge it because you're really going to only be using it for lights and stuff like that, and your converter would probably take care of it, but it seems kind of silly to take 48 volt power, invert it into 120 volt power, convert it back to 12 volt power to charge your 12 volt battery. Other alternatives. I have one of the other alternatives. I got rid of my 12 volt batteries and I installed the Victron the Orion 4830, which means it's 48 volts. It converts it to 12 volts and it's 30 amps. And I installed two of them and I got rid of my 12 volt batteries altogether. So all of my power comes directly from my 48 volts. Now, I did try, for those of you who will ask, did you try some of the other step down devices and stuff? And I did. I tried several of them and none of them were able to handle the surge power for like the leveling system, and the computer system that was connected to manage the leveling system would reboot anytime there was a surge until I got the Orion systems. Once I installed the Orions, I've got the surges problem. Now, some people will leave a 12 volt system in there, and I proved through a video back about a month ago that you can actually take a charge controller and you can use the 48 volt as your input and charge control your 12 volt battery with it. And then you just have a small buffer battery there to run all your little devices, and then it just charges right out of your 48 volt battery with very minimal losses. So those little Victron, what are they called? 80 tens or 100 tens or something like that. They're 100 volts coming in and 10 amps or 15 amps or even 20 amps are very efficient. They're very cheap, like $70. So as opposed to the Orions are like 202, 205, something like that. So they're a little expensive. So that was a $404 solution that I probably wouldn't do it again. I probably would just leave the 12 volt lithium, nice 12 volt lithium battery in there and put a Victron charge controller to use the 48 volt battery as an input, like solar input, and output to the 12 volt battery. That's how I would handle it today. All right. Moving on to the next question. I think I answered that one pretty thoroughly, hopefully. Chris asked, what is the biggest mistake that people make when installing solar on their RV? Oh, wow. I think a lot of people underestimate the biggest mistake. And so I'm going to go with just the biggest. And I think a lot of people really underestimate what they think they can live without and what they actually can live without. And they undersize their system so dramatically, thinking that they can live with this, they can live with that. And then they're very disappointed, and it's really hard to fix some of those mistakes later. They think they're going to have their battery system is big enough, and they think that they have an inverter that's big enough, or they think that they can get enough solar panels, and it ends up being too small of an amount of power coming in, and they can't really off-grid well enough, or they don't have any backup power to help them out with like a good generator to back them up as a backup plan. So that would be what I would say, is that they really don't understand what their needs are. My suggestion is that you put a monitor on your system and you go out and live it before you say this is what you want to do. Prove to yourself that you can live on the power you think you can. I can live without a coffee pot, or I can turn. This is the ones that I use because these are the realistic ones that you hear. Is, oh, well, we'll just turn the coffee pot on in the morning, and then after I make my coffee, I'll shut it off right away, and that way we use minimal power. And then after you've done it 4 or 5 mornings in a row, and you realize you really like a second cup of coffee, and now you got to turn the pot on, you got to remake all your coffee, you got to do it all over again. You wish you would have just left the pot there and on and running, but that takes extra power that you didn't anticipate. Making the second cup is what you didn't anticipate. So I think that's the biggest mistake, is people really don't pay attention to what they can really truly live with, and what they think they can live with are two different things. And once you have the power and you have the extra batteries, or you have the extra inverter power, it makes boondocking that much nicer. I mean, I can go literally, I have parked this thing in the parking lot at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, or in an RV park that didn't have any spots available except camping spots, and just parked it and been there for weeks on end and lived with no loss of amenities whatsoever. And that is way more valuable to me than being able to rough it for a couple of weeks out in the middle of the woods with just the bare minimum essentials. The way batteries are these days, you can get away with the essentials without even hooking up a system. You can hook up a little portable system and plug it into your RV and live with it that way. But that would be the biggest mistake. I think people just really don't size their system correctly. They think they can live without a whole lot of stuff, and they really can for short periods of time, but they can't be happy with it long term. So hopefully that answers your question. How did I get to that question in the first place? There it is. Okay. Moving on to the next question is, where in the world did I do it? There it is. Stupid controls are eluding me tonight. Amanda asks, how many batteries do I need to last overnight without hookups? Amanda, I can tell you definitively, I have 15 kilowatt hours here, and 90% of the time, not a problem. That's 3 48 volt 100 amp hour batteries, or one 304 amp hour DIY battery, but most people can get away with a whole lot less. I'm talking about running air conditioners, refrigerators, living hot water heaters, the whole shebang. If you were to really cut back and figure out what you were trying to do, and if you were following the weather, is the big one, because the heating and cooling are the #1 power suck in the whole thing. So hot water heater, if you turn it on, take showers, do what you ever want, and then flip it off and leave it off for the whole next day until the next day, or whatever it is, you can save a ton of money that way, or just use gas for hot water. That works well. It's nice to have it there all the time. It's nice to have the hot water on. It's nice to be able to just go in at any time of the day, wash your hands, take a shower, do the dishes, because you always have the water there. But is it a necessity? Those are the type of things you need to ask yourself. You can live without them. Do you want to live without them? But yes, you absolutely can. You can do it. And I would suggest that most people can do it with 10 to 15 kilowatt hours of battery power fairly easily. especially at least overnight. You want to live off grid for long term. It looks to me, in my situation, to be about 30 kilowatt hours to live long term off grid, to go months before I make a mistake and have to have some kind of backup plan, an inverter or a grid power or something like that. I have a big 43-foot fifth wheel. I am not operating on a little bitty RV and a little bitty, living, roughing it. Let's just say I'm not roughing it. So if you're looking to rough it, you can get away with a whole lot less for sure. All right, next question is going to be after I get another drink of coffee. And I gotta find this stinking questions. Where did they go? Keep disappearing on me. Here it is. Brian asked, do I need an inverter if I'm only running small stuff like lights and USBs? Good chance is probably no, Brian. As we talked about in question 1, I think it was, it's most RVs run their basic elements on 12 volt system or a 24 volt system. In my RV, there are little plugs all over the place for like little USB plugs that are 12 volt to the 5 volt USB step downs. There are all the lights operate at 12 volts. And to be honest with you, if I was only running the USBs and the lights in this thing, I could put one of those 12 volt, 280 amp hour, that battery. I just did a review on those metal batteries that EcoWorthy put out as one awesome battery. I would put 1 or 2 of those in here and call it done. I wouldn't even think twice about it because those things are awesome. You could probably fit 3 or 4 of them in here, do a charge on something like that, and not even have solar panels. You could probably do something like that and run an inverter every 2 or 3 days and be more than enough. And then even maybe a small solar panel might even be enough with a couple 100 watts. But certainly if you had 400 watts or so, you could live with just lights and that kind of stuff. Now, it starts getting much more complicated once you start adding refrigeration, hot water, air conditioning, heating, any of those things. But good gas alternatives to a lot of those exist also, so you might want to investigate that. But do you need an inverter? No. If all of your devices are DC powered, and in RVs most of them are, then you should be fine. Number 7, Kevin from Texas asked, how do you figure out the actual daily power usage in an RV? There are 2 really good ways. One is that you can buy I built a meter for the pedestal, and when I get to a place I can plug it in. Now, I use it a lot for the food truck also, but I also use it for the RV. But you can buy a pedestal monitor meter, or you can build one, and I've got a video for it. If you go just go look for monitoring, it'll tell you, and that will give you your usage there. You can also, on the meter when you pull up, almost all pedestals have a meter attached to them someplace. If you can find that meter, you can just do a reading off of that meter, and then you can figure out what your usage is after when you get done, you can do another reading. Now, I did both of these methods, and they both are equally accurate. I have never had really one way or another be more accurate. Now, if you're operating at a 240, like 50 amp plug, you can do it's got 2 meters in it. If you're operating on a 30 amp plug, you could do it with just 1 meter, build it with 1 meter on it. And you can also buy devices, especially for the 110 regular 20 amp plugs. You can just buy devices like a kilowatt device or something like that that just measures it and gets you the readings there. So all of those are valid. One of the easiest way to do it is to put it on a plug in, like connect it to your house or connect it to somebody's house. And most I won't say most, a lot of people in their houses have meters now, and you can use their meter to monitor a particular wall plug or something like that. And that way you can kind of figure out what it is from there. But all of those are great solutions, but definitely use an actual power monitor to come up with the answer. When I did my RV, what really surprised me is one of the very first things I did is I hooked up, I built the monitoring system. I probably can give you guys a link to that. I built the monitoring system, and it had, um, um, let me think about it. It had 2 meters in it because it's a 240 volt 50 amp plug. Now you can build it with just one, but I had to build it with 2. So I did make a video on it. I'm going to see if I can find you the video here. It's kind of a ways back, but it allows me to just plug it in, and then you just got 2 little monitor devices that you can go in and it'll tell you how many kilowatt hours you use. It'll also allow you to watch it and monitor it live, how much power it was. The one big thing that I learned was that I was using about 50 to 55 kilowatt hours a day if I untethered myself and just basically didn't care how much power I used. And it was totally unacceptable. So then I started playing around with, well, what was using all of the power? Because to me, it was just, oh, here it is. There was just no way I was going to allow that to continue. 50 kilowatt hours a day is just way too much power. And that's because the air conditioners that come with RVs were really, really terribly inefficient. They're loud, they're noisy. I couldn't watch TV, it was too loud. So the first thing I did was replace those. And that was the turning of the table. That got it to where I could easily get away with 15 kilowatt hours a day as long as I had solar going. If I didn't have solar going, it was probably because there was no sun. If there was no sun, then it wasn't going to be 15 kilowatt hours a day because that was with the air conditioner running. Let me just find that page where I'm chatting with you guys and see if I can post this link. There's the link to that video. That is the video to build the 240 volt monitor, but it will work just as well on a 30 amp one. You just need one of the devices instead of 2 of the devices. But I strongly suggest you do an audit like that and get the actual power usage before you go forward with it. All right, so let's look at what is the next one here. Is it worth upgrading to lithium batteries right away? If you've got lead acid batteries and you're okay with the 50% capacity that you're allowed to use them, then no, I would just go ahead and live the batteries. They've only got a lifespan of 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years at most if you're taking care of them and you're doing all the math. If you're tired of taking care of them, or you're worried about the chemical makeup of them, or you're going to be buying a new inverter, or you're going to be buying new chargers, or you're going to be getting a new RV, or any change to it, then yes. Then at that point, I would not buy another lead acid battery. For anything other than starting an automobile, I wouldn't buy another lead acid battery at all. I would always upgrade. And I would always figure out a way to the only thing you got to really worry about is the chargers, the converter in your RV. That's what you need to find out is, does your converter actually work with lithium batteries? Most of them are smart and they'll go ahead and adapt to it, but not all of them. So you'll want to check that. But and that's usually pretty easy. You just take the panel, the circuit panel off, and then there's like a little compartment with the converters in it, and it'll tell you how big it is, how many amps it can run. And all that's basically doing is taking, when you plug into shore power, it takes that 110 volts or that 240 volts that comes from the shore power, and it steps it down to 12 volts for charging your battery and running all your 12 volt devices like your lights and your USB ports, and sometimes people's refrigerators and other 12 volt items that they have in their thing. So upgrading, I would say absolutely yes, it's worth it. Is it worth it right away? Not if you have a functioning, working operating system that's that's working just fine, I wouldn't do it. Unless you need to expand capacity also would be another one of those where you would take good batteries out to expand the capacity because you're not going to want to mix the two. Or at least I wouldn't mix the two. I have heard some people say that they have and gotten away with it, but I wouldn't do it. I don't like to mix and match like that. Mike asks, can I mix old solar panels with new ones on my RV? Mike, a lot of this is going to depend on what kind of charge controlling system that you have. The short answer is yes, you can mix them. The long answer is that sometimes, depending on how you mix them, whether they're in series, whether they're in parallel, whether you have one charge controller or 3 charge controllers, and how many panels you have, and whether you're 12 volt or 48 volt, a lot of that comes into play too. You may have some efficiency losses. But to say that you can do it. So if you're looking at, you have 3 old panels on your thing and you're thinking about adding 2 more, and your panels are all running in parallel and the voltage is off by, it's 30 volts and 33 volts, then just do it. Yeah, there'll be some minor differences in the two, but that's not going to hurt anything. It's not worth not doing the upgrade. It's certainly not worth buying 3 extra panels to replace the 3 that have nothing wrong with them other than you want 5. So can you mix them? Yes, you can. There are some tricks sometimes that you have to know about depending on your setup, but most likely if you're looking at 12 volt ones that are running in parallel, it's not going to be an issue. Number 10, Daniel from Florida asks, what size inverter should I get for a basic RV setup? So this is actually a relatively easy question, and there's going to be 2 real big elements on here that you want to do. One is, what size plug do you have on your RV today? And so there's 3 types of plugs that you're usually going to have. One of these 3 you're going to have, and I'll give you a size inverter for each one, and then you can figure out from there what you want to do. So if you have a standard household wall plug, usually those are 15 or 20 amp wall plugs, then that means that if we just do the math on this, and I'll show you how to do, I'll walk you through the math. So we have a 20 amps at 120 volts is 2,400 watts. So that means that if you are plugging in off of a 20 amp 220 volt, that means your RV has a maximum of 2,400 watts. So if you had an inverter that was 2,400 watts maximum, it most likely would run most items in the RV. Here's the catch. When you're plugged into an outlet from like a pedestal or something, and a refrigerator kicks on and you're sitting at 2,000 and the refrigerator bounces to 3,500 and then bounces back down, that surge sometimes can knock out an inverter that claims to be 2,400 or whatever, or close to the edge. So my suggestion is go over a little bit and then make sure that you buy a good name brand inverter and you're not getting some cheap junk. And if you're going to buy some cheap junk, which is okay, in some cases I've tested plenty of them, and they work just fine. I use several of them in the solar shed. If you're going to do that, that's okay. Just plan a little bit bigger than what you actually need, because a lot of the times they overestimate their performance. These Chinese inverters, they have a tendency to claim more than they actually can perform. So you may, instead of getting a 22,000 watt or a 2,400 watt, which would handle the full 20 amp plug, and a 15 amp plug being 1,800 watts, you may go with a 3,000 watt inverter, and that would ensure that you had enough power to do it. Now, if you have a 30 amp plug, which is the big 3-prong one that plugs in, and that's still 120 volts, but it's 30 amps, then it is going to be 50% bigger than the 2,400, which should bring you to around 3,600 watts if my math is correct, but I'm going to do it just in case. 30 times 120 is 3,600 watts, just as I thought. So in that one, you're going to need a little bit bigger inverter, and you're going to need it all on a single leg, meaning you can't do like a split phase like I did with the 6000 XP where I have 3000 on one leg and 3000 on another leg. It needs to be 3600 on the same leg because your RV is operating all on one leg. Now, when we get to the 50 amp, $240, this is where things start to get a little complicated. And it's really not as complicated as you would think. On a 50 amp, the RV takes it and splits it into two pieces, and each side gets a 50 amp 120 volts. So it doesn't actually run 240 volt items. There are no 240 volt items in my RV, and I don't know of any that do. In a normal circuit breaker box, you would be able to use, put in a breaker that hit both L1 and L2 on a 240, which means it'd be using both sides of that 110, and you'd end up with 50 amps 240 volts, which is twice the size of 50 amps 120 volts. So in reality, as compared to the 3600 watts that you get on a 30 amp plug, you're going to have 50 amps times 120, which is 6000 watts, but you're going to get it on both branches. So technically on a 50 amp 240, you're getting 12,000 watts of power. Now, that said, it is rare that most RVs don't use 12,000 watts of power. I have mine running on a 6000 XP. Are there times when I hit all of it at the same time? Yes, there are. If I have, let's say it's a cold morning and I get up in the morning and I flip on the heat pump in my mini split, and it starts pulling 1200 watts. And then I start to make my espresso, and I go to wash out my cup, and I run the hot water, and the hot water runs for a little while, and my espresso machine is pulling 1500 watts. Now I'm sitting at 2600 watts. And if by chance I use enough hot water that the hot water heater just happens to kick on at the same time, there's another 1800 watts, and it goes over the 3000 on that one leg, and it will shut off. If I've got grid, no problem. It flips over to the grid. I don't even know what happened, and then it flips back a minute later when it realizes that one of those three devices shut off. So you can get away with smaller, but just know you may have times when things cut out. And I don't even remember what the damn question was. What am I answering here? What size inverter? Oh, what size inverter should I get for a basic RV solar setup? For most people, around 2000 watts is a good size. It powers a lot of stuff. It'll handle most RVs, especially if you've only got a 110 plug. If you've got a 50 amp 220 plug in, then you're going to want a little bit larger. And usually you're going to go with something in the range of about 6000 watts. And usually you're going to end up with like Victron 3000 watt, 3000 kilowatt devices, which is about 2800 watts. And you'll put two of those in, one for each leg of your RV. Hopefully that answers the question. I know it was a bit convoluted, but it was more involved than I expected. Sorry about that. All right. Michael, thank you. You are answering a lot of good questions. Well, I hope so. And if you have any of them, or if anyone else has any of them, please feel free to just let me know. I'll be glad to answer your questions also. All right. I am gonna just keep moving on here. Rachel asked, "What do you handle? How do you handle shading from AC units on vents on your roof?" I handled them by taking off the air conditioning, and then I didn't have to worry about it anymore. This is kind of a complicated question because there is no good answer to it. If you have a 48 volt system, the biggest problem with a 48 volt system is in order to charge it, you're going to need to put panels in series, and that's going to cause you to have problems with shading, because then when one panel gets shaded, either 3 or 4 panels, or in the case of my RV, 5 panels end up taking the loss. So Some people put on tilt systems. Some people, like me, just take everything off the roof and make only the solar panels up there. I do have a couple of vents that are there, but none of them are close enough to cause any kind of problem with shading. I have what am I trying to say here? I have two series of panels up there that are 5 panels apiece. I have in the front of the RV, I have 5 panels that are in series, and in the back of the RV, I have 5 panels that are in series. Both of them run into their own MPPT in the 6000 XP because I have 2 of them, and it allows me to track them independently, which if I take you over here to to Home Assistant, you can see here I've got 2 L1, L2, which is the power we talked about there. And then on the solar input, and this is the same system that I have here on the RV. This is the solar shed, not my RV, because I don't have Home Assistant hooked up to my RV right now. So I'm showing it to you here, but don't anyone notice that it is not. This is not the actual RV. The RV is this device here. And so you can see here I've got PV1 and PV2. Right now there's no input from those. But if I go over here and look at the data from this PV1, you can see here this is wattage coming in throughout the day. And then if I go to PV2, it is completely different. And I wonder if I could get both of them on the screen at one time. Or if I hold down the control key or shift key or something, if it will. Nope, it is not going to do it for me. Thought I could get both of them on the screen at one time. That would be kind of nice. But as you can see, this one has very little power here early in the day. And then PV1 has a whole bunch of power here earlier in the day. Obviously, there's some shading on this one early in the morning, and it doesn't pick up until the evening. That is why I split it into 2 pieces. Originally, I had 10 panels in one big series just running into my inverter, but then any little tree anywhere caused me problems. So how do I handle it? The best way to handle it is to, if you're running in 12 volt, run all your panels in parallel. Then you can, every one shade independently is controlled and all that. You can hook up tilting systems. I've seen some tilting systems. You can mount them up high enough to where it doesn't, do some risers and get it up off of the rooftop. You can do like me. You can remove all the obstructions like the air conditioners and stuff that are in the way and just put more panels. There's a couple of ways to work around it, but there's no magic bullet for it. They're all extra work and they're all extra problems for it. And they do cause a lot of different problems depending on where you are. I'm one of the rare people, I prefer to part in the sun. I want the sun because in the sun I can power everything all day long, 24/7, forever and ever and ever. Get those beautiful trees and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it feels nice and cool outside, but I'm usually going to be out there in the evening anyway, and there ain't going to be any sun, and I will have charged all day long. So for me, that's how I do it. But how do I handle shading from AC units and vents on the roof? And my answer is take the ACs off. That's not a great answer for everyone, but you do have to parallel more and be very conscientious of which ones are parallel and which ones are serial. Eric P. asks, can I charge my RV batteries while driving and using solar at the same time? I do. As a matter of fact, there are times when I know I am going to be, that I've stopped to get gas and go to the bathroom at a rest stop, and I know I'm going to be at the RV park in a half hour's drive, so I'm, tanking up so the next morning I don't have to do it. And there are times when I stop and not only have I charged all day and my solar panels have ran, I'll flip on the air conditioners and drive the last 30 minutes down the road with the air conditioners running and cool the place off, so when I get there, everything's hooked up. I never shut my system off, ever. It runs 24/7, 7 days a week, all the time, 365 days a year, and I never ever turned it off. The only time my system has shut down for any length of time, it was about 3 hours, and that was when I got the warranty version of my 6000 XP in. I pulled the old one out, I put the new one back in, I hooked it all back up. That was it. That's the only time. So absolutely yes, you can. What batteries for an RV, portable panels or roof mounted panels? What's better for an RV, portable panels or roof mounted panels? To be honest with you, I've had no luck with portable panels. They are flimsy, they are fragile, they are nothing but problematic. I've had a couple of companies that promised me that were going to send me things that were going to make it, really cool for me, and they were going to allow me to set some solar panels, some flexible ones out, and use my alternate inverter or charger in my RV. And to be honest with you, they either never show up or they're just so damn sensitive to being moved around that I don't have any luck with them. The only time I've seen anyone have any luck with them is when they attach them permanently to something. So if you attach them, maybe if you attach them to the top of find a good way to attach them to the top of an RV roof, and I guess they could work really well. But the problem is the only good way that I could think to attach those flexible ones is like glue them down or something. But then what are you going to do when you need to replace them or if something goes wrong? So that's kind of the hard part there is what do you do when something goes wrong? And so no, I have had no luck with them, none at all at this point. I would stick with the hard shell ones. I would replace whatever equipment I need to replace on the roof to make it happen. I probably would trash the air conditioners that are up there anyway. And that said, they have those new 12 volt and I think they have 48 volt roof air conditioners now that are getting more efficient. I'm hopefully I'll get a couple of those or get one or two of those in for testing here soon, and we'll be able to determine. I'd like to put one in the food truck and test it to see if you could really replace your air conditioning units in your RV with something that's more reliable. But I don't know. At this point, I've had no luck with the flexible panels whatsoever, so I would not even consider them. All right. Nicole from California asks, how long will a 200 amp hour battery actually last in a real use? All right, so first of all, in order to answer this question, we're going to need to know how many volts a 200 amp hour battery is. And let's just assume for a moment that is a 12 volt battery. So what you can do to find out the actual usage of a battery like this is 200 amps times the nominal voltage will tell you how many watt hours you're going to get out of this battery. So if we have a 200 amp hour battery times, and let's say it's a 12 volt battery, which nominal voltage for a 12 volt battery is 13.2. You'd multiply it by 13.2 and you get 2,640 watt hours. That means that if I run something that takes 100 watts, I can run it for 26.4 hours. If it's runs at 500 watts, then that means I could run it for 5 hours, and then I've got about 10 minutes left and it's going to go dead. And that's exactly the real calculation that you need to use. The only additional thing you need to take into account here is that there's about a 15 to 20% cost of use here. And what do I mean by cost of use? The inverter takes power, the charge controller takes power, converting from battery to AC power to DC power takes power, storing it from getting it from solars. And that means that if you get in 100 watts from the solar panel and you put it into your battery and then you take it out and you convert it to AC, you may start with 100 watts, you may end up with 80. So there's losses in there, and you need to take those into account. Other than not sizing your system better, which is what I answered as one of the largest mistake. The second largest mistake is people don't take into account the fact that all these electronics don't run on vapor. They take power to run, and they're using power. And I'll give you a pure, raw example of this. When I left, I had the little mini solar system that I had designed. The video came out back a few weeks ago. Let's just see if I can find the video for you guys. The video came out back a week or two ago about building a little 12-volt system. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. Building a little 12-volt system, and I used that 280 amp hour metal battery from what is the name of that? EcoWorthy. Here it is. Let's see if I can. This here. And here's the video for it. This is the video here, and I will send you over the link to this. This video, this is my perfect example. So when I left town, and here it is in case you're interested in it. Let me just see if I can get this sent in the chat window if I can find it. There it is. So when I left town, I'll switch back to this. I left this battery. It's this third one down here at the bottom here. And it's got 28 watts being used. This is what we call idle consumption. This is the inverter going to that battery. The problem is that it's got one solar panel hooked up to it. That's 200 watt solar panel, the EcoWorthy solar panel. And every day, this battery charges to about 12%, 10%, 12%, somewhere in that range. The problem is the idle consumption drags it back down to 0 every night, and then it gets charged back up to 11% today. And then tomorrow morning, it'll be 0. So the idle consumption is using 10% of the battery power just to keep the battery, just to keep all the devices running. And that's just because the inverter's on. I'm not using any power, but there's idle consumption. And this is one of the biggest problems that people think. They think I've got a 100 amp hour battery here. And in reality, 10% of it's gone before you even start. So that in that math that we just did a few minutes ago, where we said, what did we say? We said that you would have 2,640 watt hours. In reality, 264 of them are gone before you ever start, because that's what it's going to take to have the actual equipment to run them on so that you could use them. Hopefully that answered the question. It was a little convoluted. Sorry about that. All right. Let's go back to, if I can find it again. There it is. Looks like the chat's still going. All right. So next question is Steve asked, do I need a charge controller for every solar panel? And the answer is no. And I'm not sure what this trend is going on right now, but people were running panels in parallel for years, where you would hook up 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 panels in parallel and put them all into a single charge controller. I ran one in the solar shed with the whole 12 panel system all paralleled into a combiner box. The combiner box puts them into one thing, puts them into one charge controller, puts them in. Is it absolutely 100% perfectly efficient compared to every one of them having their own charge controller? No, it's not. But at the same time, you're not paying for 12 charge controllers to run either. So there's some efficiency loss there. Absolutely, you can run them in parallel. Absolutely, you can run parallel lines. You can run serial connections in parallel. In the solar shed, I've got configured right now, and I'll take you back over to that one and talk about that for quick. And this works on an RV just as well as it does in the shed. So here, my 6000 XP on the RV right now, I've got two 5-panel series running, but they're not parallel. They're both running to individual MPPTs. Now, why are they running on individual MPPTs? Do I have to? No, they could run into the same one. But reason I like it is because I can come in here and say, okay, show me a graph on what this MPPT did versus show me a graph on what this one did. Or in the RV, I can say, show me the data on PV1, where I can see it's got sun all day long, and show me the graph on PV2 where it's shaded in the morning. Now, I know that PV2 is the back of my RV, which means there's some trees in the way of the back of my RV. And so I could put them into the same PV. It does give you visibility into it, but it doesn't affect production. It doesn't affect production significantly, unless when you parallel them, they are different voltages. Now, there are a lot of people that do different voltage paralleling, and that's probably not the best of all worlds. In other words, you probably shouldn't take, two panels that add up to 60 volts and parallel them with 3 panels that adds up to 90 volts. That you're going to have a pretty big, gap there in your voltages, and that could affect production dramatically. You're going to drag that 90 volt down to the 60 volt, and you're probably going to have some losses depending upon what time of day it is and how the sun runs and everything. And a lot of that's going to be a lot more difficult to predict. But you absolutely, if you have 2 panels in series here and 2 panels in series here, and they're both 60 volts, both series, you can definitely combine them together, run them in parallel, and you can put them into one charge controller, as long as the charge controller's maximum output can handle the output of amperage of them both together. It's not an issue. And there is a trend going on right now where everyone is trying to say that you need a separate charge controller for every string, and I'm not sure I quite understand it. What is the purpose of a combiner box? A combiner box takes multiple strings and parallels them together so you can feed them into one MPP. Why would they have built a combiner box if you couldn't do it? It makes no sense. So the answer is yes. You do not need give you a perfect example. 3,000 watt inverter hanging on my wall at home for the test system for the 12 volt system. Matter of fact, the one we were just talking about that's got the idle consumption that's killing the battery every day. That inverter, $120, something like that. 3,000 watts, same as the 3,000 watts inverters that are in my 6000 XP, except 6000 XP has 2 of them running in split phase, and they're both 3,000 watts. The difference is, here in my RV, I could hook up everything and run at 3,015 watts all day long, and my inverter will go, hey, you're a little over, be careful. And if something kicks on and I'm sitting at 2,500 watts and it shoots up to 4,000 for a second and right back down to 3,000, it just launches the drill or the compressor or the welder or whatever it is and goes on about its business, and no big deal. Little spike, because it has a surge capacity of 6,000, and it's not a lie. But I do that on that 3,000, that cheap one at home, and it will shut off every time. If I get even close to 3,000, it shuts off. Now, their claim is based on their little test in their environment where they had a certain temperature, they had just the right wires, they had their voltage cranked up to just the thing so they could deliver just the right amount of amperage, and everything worked the way it was supposed to work, and they got 3,000 out of it one time in their test environment, and they called it a 3,000 watt inverter. Whereas a lot of the nicer inverters will actually give you real results, and they perform the way they're supposed to. The second one is there's a difference between high frequency and low frequency inverters, and this basically comes down to being able to handle the surge, to being able to handle the usage, and to be able to reliably operate for years and years and years and years. I don't know a whole bunch about this. I test my inverters, and if they do what I want them to do, I do that. I know there is a big difference between them, like the Victron, or they have the bigger units, the nicer units, and they're very, very reliable. The EG4s are not the same type of inverter. They are a low frequency inverter, so they don't quite have that nice thing in it, but they perform the way they're promised to perform. And then you have the cheap inverters, which have all the downsides and none of the upsides, and you really need to test them to make sure they're going to do what you want them to do. Hope that answers that question, Brandon. Kim asks, can I plug my RV into a shore power and use solar at the same time? All right, so the key here is can you use solar at the same time? And this depends on the inverter. In the 6000 XP, if I plug it into shore power and I tell it to use shore power, then everything that it does is on shore power. All the devices that it runs is on shore power. And if I ask it to charge, it'll be based on shore power also. But it also can take the solar panels and use it to charge the batteries. But it does not operate any devices on that device. Now, if I'm talking about, there's other devices that will allow you to combine the two and share some shore power and have what they call assisted grid assist type features, where it will take your battery power and the grid, or your solar power and the grid, or a combination of the three, and combine them in the most efficient way that you would like to see them configured. So can you do it? Yes. Do all systems do it? No. Not all of them do. Matter of fact, most of them for off-grid systems for RVs and that type of thing aren't going to do it. It's going to be an all or nothing. You're going to be in bypass mode and everything operates on one with the exception of maybe some charging from the PV, or it's going to be all using your batteries and using. Alex from Colorado asks, what is the best way to explain my system later without redoing everything? What is the best way to expand my system without redoing everything later? It depends on what you're trying to expand. Make sure that you buy an inverter where you can run multiple of them in parallel. That's the first thing. If you're talking about an RV system, then tonight we're talking about RV, so I'm kind of going to revisit my answer here a little bit. I would make sure that I go with the system that is as big as I can get for what I need right now, and then expand in the batteries bank. Batteries banks are easy to expand now. Lithium iron phosphate has made this so simple because you can put 100 amp hour batteries and 300 amp hour batteries and 600 amp hour batteries all together, and they just consume at different rates. So if you have a 100 amp hour battery and a 300 amp hour battery, your 300 amp hour battery will provide 75% of the power to run everything, and your 100 amp hour battery will provide 25%. They'll charge together, they'll go down together. There's tons and tons to install a second one and stuff, so you may end up with problems there. But you could always go, if you're going with like a Victron system, then you always have that flexibility of running multiple charge controllers, running multiple inverters, running multiple batteries, it costs you a premium to operate that type of equipment, but it does have some very distinctive advantages. Excuse me. So it really depends on what you're trying to say, redo everything. Voltage is the most important thing to get right because you do everything. Voltage is the most important thing to get right because your batteries and your inverters are your most expensive piece, and those are the two that change when your battery voltage changes. Your chargers usually can change with you. You can charge 12 volt today, 24 volt next week, and 48 volt 5 years from now. But your battery bank, you can't just add new 48 volt batteries onto a 12 volt system. Now you can take your 12 volt batteries and put them in series and make 48 volts out of them. But if you start with a 48 volt system because you know you're going to end up being there, instead of having 400 amp hours, you just buy one 48 volt 100 amp hour. Then next year you can add a second one and a third one and a fifth one and whatever you want. So that's the way. My best suggestion is to focus on getting the inverter and the chargers right and worrying about battery expansion later. And that way you always have that flexibility of adding them, because batteries are getting super, they continue to impress me with their prices, and they're getting cheaper and they're getting better and they're getting more and more reliable. I mean, most of the batteries we have now, we're going to get to the point where we're having to will them to our kids. Tyler asks, how do you keep your batteries from overheating in the summer? This is not, I'm just trying to find the chat window here. This is not too difficult to do. I don't, if you keep them in a bay or you keep them out of direct sunlight and out of any exhaust, in other words, if you have a mini splits or anything like that, you don't want any exhaust on them and you want them out of direct sunlight. I have had no problems with them in the bay. Seldomly does a bay get to the temperature that's going to cause you problems, and simple ventilation handles them. So I haven't had too much trouble from that. Amy says the charge controller does need to match or exceed the amps of the panels connected to it, correct? Yes, they do. They need to, the amount of panels meet or exceed. The charge controller does need to match or exceed the amps. Well, let's take one step back for a second, Amy, on that question. If the voltage is the one that you cannot go over, so if you hook up panels in series to a charge controller, let's say you have a 100/20, meaning it has a 100 volt input maximum and a 20 amp output maximum. So if it's a 100 volt input maximum, do not exceed this on any charge controller anywhere. I would suggest you don't do it on the Victron ones, you don't do it on the EG4s, you don't do it on the cheap ones, you don't do it on any of them. They're all pretty much burn up and fry. I've been very lucky on a couple of Victrons where I've had, panels aligned where they go over a little bit and it just tells me, hey, the voltage is over, but they are not supposed to. They're supposed to fry, and I was very, very lucky. So voltage, absolutely. Output's a different story. This is called overpaneling. So if you have enough power, let's say you have a 20 amp charger. It's a 100/20. I mean, it can accept up 100 volts, but it can only output 20 amps. Well, it's 20 amps to the voltage that it's charging. So 20 amps to 120 volt to a 12 volt battery would be 240 watts. So it'd be 20 times 12 is 240. The same thing's true at 48 volts. It would be 20 times the 48 volt battery, which would be 480 times 2, which is 960 watts. Now that's the maximum it can output. If you actually if you over panel a little bit, it's just going to trim it off and throw it out and not use it. So if you had 1200 watts of panels, as long as they were under the 100 volts, that's the part you don't want to go over, then it will trim off some excess going out to it. And I have not seen anything in excess of 50% that could cause a problem with this. Now, there are some inverters today, some chargers today, some all-in-ones and some chargers that specifically say maximum input amperage or maximum this. So those you're going to watch for. But on a Victron, if its maximum output is, let's just use, for example, a 20 amp 12 volt battery, meaning it can output a maximum of 240 watts, and you hook up 500 watts to it, at some point early in the day, it's going to get to the point where it can output 240 watts, and it's just going to stay there because that's the maximum that it can output, but it won't hurt it. That's the good news. Hopefully that answered your question, Amy. Where am I at? How do you keep your batteries from overheating in the summer? So the answer, there was a quick answer there, is I keep them in a bay, keep them out of direct sunlight, keep them out of any heat that's blowing directly on them. And to be honest with you, I have never had them have any problems. They're well within their standards to be in the 80s and 90 degrees zone. If you're getting into the hundreds, like you're in Arizona or something like that, then I would definitely hook some fans up to them. But if I had $1,000 to start, I would start by investigating really exactly what do you really, really need. I would find out every single power consumption that you're going to have and see if you can build a system that that takes care of all of that, or if you can build a part of a system that you may need to upgrade later to take care of your full demand. But like I said in the previous question, I would focus on making sure that the inverter is right the first time, because that's the piece that's the expensive piece that you'll end up having to replace as opposed to the other one. as opposed to batteries you can add to. Charge controllers usually can upgrade with your voltage, but the one that can't be is the inverter. So I would focus on making sure I got the inverter right. Buy a good inverter to handle really what your real needs are. And before I did that, I would make sure that my real needs are really what I need. Test it, live with it, make sure you're really willing to put up with it. And I don't mean by estimate, well, I think I can do this and I think I can do that and I can live without this and I can live without that. Great. Go do it for a week. Go live without it for a week and then decide, are you really willing to do it to save $300 on your inverter? And if the answer is no, get the better inverter now. Don't go back and spend it all again. If you got the money to do it wrong twice or 3 times, you got the money to figure out how to do it right the first time. All right. And that is all of the questions for today that I had in stock. I know I look like I went offline there for a few minutes. I don't know how that affected all of you guys, but I'm hoping that, oops, what am I doing here? Oh, there it is. I'm hoping that most of that got through to you. I am going to put the link down there in the box here with a QCAN code for all of the different equipment that I use on my in my RV. There's a copy of the RV system out there with the 6000 XP to the shunts, to the charge controllers, to all of the fuses and the breakers and everything that's on there. And there's also the rest of the systems are there also, and a couple of coupon codes for you if you're interested in saving some money. Those are also available. And that is all I had for this week. And it is great being back in Texas for a week, but I'm also looking forward to going back home. So we'll be here in Beaumont for the South Texas State Fair, and I hope if you are around that you will come out and see us. We are in the Ford, what is that place called? The Ford, indoor Ford building. Not in the outdoor part of the fair. We are on the indoor fair part of it, towards the back. So come by, see us, get yourself a cup of coffee, and if I'm around, I will be around later in the evening. I probably won't be there for the first or so hour that we're open, but after that I will be around. So if you're there and you want to talk, you have any questions, I'll be glad to talk and see some of you for real in person. That would be wonderful. And I think that's it for this week. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. I hope you're had a great weekend. And I'll hope to see you all again next week. I have no idea what subject I'm going to be talking about. Usually it comes to me about an hour after I disconnect from this one of what I can do next week. So that's what I'll figure it out when I get there. Anyway, talk to everybody next week. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for, subscribers. Let's talk real quick about that. You guys are fantastic when it comes to subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now and join the other 20,757 subscribers that have joined me on this wonderful adventure of solar power, whether it's an RV, whether it's home power, or whether you're just looking to power a shed so you can run all your electrical equipment for free, or even portable power systems. Or in my case, I'm going to build my wife. Next up is a 100% off-grid coffee trailer. We're going to have the espresso machine, all of the coffee equipment, everything. 100% off-grid. I have got 2 different setups we are going to build, from a brand new inverter that was shipped out to me, and it arrived right before I left, which we'll leave that for a surprise. And then I've got the 2 3000 EVHVs from EG4 that we're going to hook up in parallel and run that one also. We'll figure out which one does best. We'll do a little side-by-side comparison, and I hope you guys can join me for that. But thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. To all of my members who spend the $2 a month for the early editions of all the episodes, I know I've got a lot of content, a lot of extra content out there for you guys. I think there's probably an extra 12 or 15 videos already posted going forward. So hopefully I'll have some more after this, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining, and thanks for being you. Y'all have a great week.